from the Ticats Audio Network, this is the CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil.
A 10-turnover thriller in Winnipeg. Vernon Adams was rhyming and stealing. No Masoli, no chance for the Red Blacks, and once again, Edmonton football fans go home empty. Welcome to the season debut of the CFL This Week on the Ticats Audio Network. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Thank you for joining us. We are the #1 podcast for CFL information and opinions with guests who are certainly in the know. We'd love for you to hit that subscribe and rate the show, please, because it certainly helps us in the long run. Time for our Week 1 co-host from the Canadian Press. He is Dan Ralph, covering the likes of the Tiger Cats and the Argonauts. Dan, always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, he is the sports editor for the Regina Leader-Post. Taylor Shire for nearly 3 decades. Also, we bring in the likes of Calgary Stampeders, Mark Stevens. Appreciate both of you. Let's talk some football. What do you think, guys?
Go for it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, quite simple off the top. I'll start from you, Mark. The biggest surprise of the week was?
Well, I guess I'd have to say the fact that Hamilton gave up so many points. I thought they were, loading up, and they faced a very good Winnipeg team. I'm not going to argue with that, but giving up the number of points they did, that was quite a surprise. And I guess a close second is how Edmonton couldn't punch it in from the 1-yard line on 3 tries. And it's not just that they would have won a game, but the lift that would have given the franchise, which has been downtrodden because of their inability to win at home. Those are sort of two things that jumped out to me.
Taylor?
Biggest surprise for me, probably the play of Trevor Harris, honestly, in Saskatchewan. We know what he can do. He threw 2 interceptions, which is not unlike him, and threw it for under 200 yards. Yet his team still managed to help him out and get the win. Of course, the strong play of the defense. So that was one for sure. And then I think over in BC, the play of Vernon Adams Jr. Obviously, the Lions were going to take somewhat of a step back without Nathan Rourke this year. Vernon Adams Jr. Looked like a pretty capable candidate to take over for Rourke this year. Of course, we know what he can do, and he's shown good stuff before. Now, can he put that together for a whole season?
Dan?
Well, I'm surprised that the Argos are one. Oh, sorry, they didn't play. I wasn't surprised with Winnipeg, and I'll start with what I wasn't surprised with. And I wasn't surprised with BC, just because I think both those organizations show you what continuity at quarterback means. I was surprised at Winnipeg special teams prowess against Hamilton. Their head coach is arguably one of the better special teams coaches in the league, and the Ticats were able to climb back into it thanks to great special teams play. And I was surprised at what I saw last night, and that's I'm going to be writing about it today. I don't disagree with the stance that Craig Dickinson and the Riders took going forward on 3rd down. I question rolling out an immobile quarterback and exposing him to a big hit, and especially when I think Craig Dickinson said after the game he was pretty sure they were going to give the ball back to Edmonton with at least one play on the game. I would have run the ball if it were me. They ran the ball effectively from the 3 on that drive, and I would have, if you're going to give up 3 seconds or you're going to give up 5 seconds, I would have given up. I would have run the ball hoping that maybe Morrow or Hickson could break it and get a first down. And if they get a first down, the game's over. So I would have done it differently. But that surprised me at the end. And also the fact that Edmonton couldn't punch the ball over from the 1. That's stunning.
Taylor, you cover that team. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was surprising to me. Obviously Harris was wanting to kill the clock with how many ever seconds left. And you have a pretty mobile backup quarterback in Shea Patterson who can scramble and run around and obviously heave it downfield. So Craig Dickinson actually did say post-game, he's like, in hindsight, I probably should have put somebody else out there, because when Harris takes a big shot to the hip and goes down like that, everybody kind of gasps. And, that's their $500,000 quarterback. You don't want to see him taking a hit, especially in kind of a meaningless play in week 1 when anybody else could have taken that snap. So whether they could have ran the ball, they could have kicked a field goal, they could have punted, they could have let a backup quarterback in. That was very much a surprise to me, and I think Dickinson would probably take that back and put somebody else in if he got to do it again.
Yeah, I'll follow that up too, Taylor. I mean, I have no problem with Trevor staying in the game. I really don't. I would have put him under center. I would have taken a 5-step drop, and I would have told Trevor to throw that ball as high as he could and as far as he could, because the clock's not going to stop until it comes down and hits the ground. And so, but to roll him out and expose him to a hit, and he's not getting enough loft on the ball as he's rolling out because his feet aren't set. So I have no problem. I mean, to me, a field goal wasn't the option because you could get it blocked. You're already leading, so whether you win by 4 or win by 7, who cares? And I just think if you want to put the backup in there, I don't disagree with that either. But I'm with you. I don't think you expose your $500,000 quarterback to an unnecessary hit, and we'll see how whether Trevor plays this week. I think he will, but we'll see.
Yeah, Taylor. Is there any update on him? Is he okay? I mean, he certainly did look like he was in pain.
Yeah.
After the game, he said he was fine. Obviously, a hip pointer right on that hip. So that was, we spoke with him less than a half an hour after the game, and I'm sure it was, he still had a lot of adrenaline running through his body at that point. So, 24 hours later, he's going to sleep on it. They don't practice till Tuesday, so we'll see if he trots out, if he has a noticeable limp. But yeah, that hip doesn't, it probably doesn't feel that great, 24 hours, even 48 hours later. But he did say he was fine after the game.
Let's turn it around, guys. Mark, again, starting with you, biggest disappointment of the week.
Well, I would say from my vantage point, it was the Ottawa Red Blacks. And I say that because new coach started last year, but I'm just saying it just looks like the same. From last year, was this game 1 of 2023 or game 19 of 2022? I mean, are they making any progress? I mean, they've been at or near the cellar for the last 4 years, and I don't know if there's any spark coming for the team, but they need it quickly. So they were a disappointment as well. And, second, the Stampeders did not play particularly well. They've got to pick it up as well. And I think they're capable of doing that, but we can't talk about it. They've got to show it. But to me, it was just Ottawa, and just it just doesn't look like they're making any progress.
Taylor?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mark. When they get Masoli back, I think they'll take a step forward. So, temporarily, I don't think they're going to take much of a step forward without him, with Arbuckle at quarterback. I think the biggest disappointment for me, other than the Dickinson leaving Harrison for that last game, which was certainly quite a head scratcher and a disappointment, was kind of I don't mean to pick on the Stamps, but not only the play of the quarterback, Jake Mayer, but also the attendance. When you have an opening game of the season, and it's trending that way for the Riders here in Saskatchewan as well. They're not close to selling it out. There's not going to be a packed house like there was in years past. So I'm just kind of disappointed in the lack of attendance in Calgary, upcoming here in Saskatchewan, and kind of across the CFL. Edmonton obviously had a good showing last night with 33,000 or whatever it was. But yeah, I would say I'm just kind of disappointed in the overall trend of crowds for season openers.
BC looked like they're going to be okay.
Yeah, and that's where other teams need to take a page out of their book and start attracting fans in different ways, and not, here's our football game and please show up, right? That's really what a lot of teams are just doing is what they've done in the past, and obviously there needs to be new strategies and new ways to get, whether it's new fans, old fans that have been around for years. There's lots of people canceling their season tickets because it's just not worth it anymore. So what are the teams doing? I think BC is the leader, and Edmonton for that matter. I think Victor's doing a good job there in attracting all sorts of fans. So I think the other teams need to take notice and start doing some different things to attract fans.
Mark, in Calgary, does it have anything to do with McMahon? I mean, that would be the oldest facility in the league, I would presume.
Two things. Yes, it is used as an excuse by a lot of people, and there are certainly some challenges, particularly when you go into the concourse area and the washrooms. It's an antiquated stadium built for another era. So yes, it is an excuse. There aren't seat backs on every single seat. So it is a problem. It's become an old facility, and between the goal lines, there's some really good seating. It's probably as good as there is, but it's everything else, and it's become such an issue. I think a lot of people use it as a bit of a crutch. I will say, though, McMahon Stadium has a lot of challenges. I'm there every day, so I know them. As long as Montreal's in the league, McMahon can never be the worst. I'll tell you that.
Dan, biggest
Sorry,
disappointment.
that's a museum with a football game thrown in.
Dan, biggest disappointment to you.
Yeah, I would agree with Ottawa. I've tempered my enthusiasm and expectations until Jeremiah comes back. I think they become a different football team. My disappointment is the Elks. I mean, to me, you had an opportunity. I don't understand, and somebody indulge me here. You've got Taylor Cornelius, who's 6'5", 230. Why isn't he running the offense on the goal line? And he's more mobile. I just think, I get first and goal, you go for it. I get wanting to run the ball. I don't know. I might have tried to play action on second down and try and get a cheap one. We've seen you line up an offensive lineman as a tight end and you let him flow into the end zone and he's wide open. Just something. I'm being nitpicky, but I just think when you got a 6'5", 230-pound quarterback, to me, he's your second down quarterback. I get that you don't want your starter in there, but on the 1 yard line with that momentum shift was monumental. You score there and you're ahead with 4 minutes left. To me, that's what I would have done. But I'd say Ottawa and Edmonton were my two disappointments.
Well, and remind me here, Kyle Loxley, is he not more of a wide receiver type? Like, is that not his true position?
He's just athletic, right? And I think if you look at the history of getting 3 chances from the 1 yard line, I think odds are in favor of the defense overall, or the offense overall. Probably 80% or 90% most teams would score given 3 chances, and there's always a chance for an offside or some sort of penalty that would give you a fresh set of downs. But there's not too many times where you see a defense make 3 stops like that. And even chatting with Roland Milligan, who made the stop on the third down play, he said that they knew they were running the ball. The Riders defense knew they were running the ball with Kyle Loxley in. That's what they were trying to do, just put their head down. And obviously on the third down play, he tried to go around the corner and Milligan made the stop in the backfield. But yeah, I think if you leave Cornelius in there, he has the option to keep it himself, roll out, hand off, run pass option, throw it to the back of the end zone. There's a lot of different plays, but I still think Jones and the Elks would do the same thing next time because the history shows that the offense does score more times than not on that play.
In terms of disappointment, I guess based on my social media, and Mark, I'll come to you with this, and because you've known the man for a long time, I'm getting littered with the Bo Levi Mitchell disappointments, and you guys have not said that. So I'm presuming, Mark, knowing him, seeing him for a decade, that you expect more in week 2.
Yeah, I hear you. That's fair enough. I mean, they invested plenty in him to, but maybe it'll take a little time, and we'll see what happens. But you're right; it was not a vintage effort, and he's going to have to pick it up in a hurry. So yeah, I guess I would put him in that category that he can play much better, I think, and see what he does in week 2, because obviously all eyes are on him. The Ticats extended themselves very, very heavily to pull him in, so we'll see what happens there.
Dan, you've seen a lot of him at training camp, and I thought every time I was at training camp, I was surprised at how sharp and how there seemed to be a building chemistry with a lot of his wide receivers, but that was not the case on Friday.
Yeah, and I mean, even he said it's probably going to take him 4 or 5 weeks to get into sync, and I get that. I mean, he played what, a quarter in the exhibition season? And so, I mean,
two series.
Yeah.
2 series.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, Friday, this week's game was a continuation of that development of chemistry. So, and we saw it with, like I said, I come back to BC and I come back to Winnipeg. You've got guys that are in starting positions that they held at one point last year, and I think there's some familiarity there. I'm not so worried about him getting into sync with his receivers. I'm more worried about him playing 18 games and being healthy. And I think if he plays 18, I think they'll be in good shape. To be honest, I'm not overly worried about the first game because he wasn't the only the new quarterback to struggle. I mean, we talk about Trevor. Cody Fajardo didn't exactly set the world afire in Montreal either, and so I'm more worried about his long-term health than I am his ability.
Okay, so and running right off that, then Taylor, like we're looking at those three quarterbacks that Dan just mentioned, high-profile quarterbacks. We look at the fact that, in my opinion, scoring was not there, except for the Winnipeg and Hamilton game, which was bonkers. When a lot of that was scored, at least for Hamilton, defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. Zach Collaros looked great, but with the exception of Zach, based on the performances of the quarterbacks and the defenses and the offenses, should we be looking at maybe 3 preseason games to get these guys more acclimatized to each other? So this way our week 1 product is, a far superior product than what we saw this week?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. However, you'd have to get the teams to buy in as well and to commit to playing their starters for a full game and not use it as another evaluation game where all the backups are just getting another chance. So you'd have to have buy-in from the teams, and I don't know if you can say that, okay, you have to play your starters for the second preseason game and then give them a chance to get warmed up. Obviously, every team would take a different approach to it, but a team could very well say, oh yeah, sure, another preseason game, we'll evaluate these backups and give them one more chance. Obviously Trevor Harris played 1 drive for the Riders and looked good in the preseason, and then they pulled him. And
didn't he protest to the coach that he needed to play more?
He wanted to stay in, and Dickinson said, we've seen all we need to see from you, and you threw a touchdown pass, and you avoided a blitz, so you're good. Come out. But yeah, Harris did try to get back into the game, obviously, being a competitor. So I think the players would want that game, that extra preseason game to get tuned up. But I don't know if the teams and the coaches and the management would to risk more injury in basically a meaningless game, right?
Mark, I don't know how these guys evaluate. Like it is amazing to me. I can look at the Hamilton example. There was as much as 100 guys throughout the entire training camp process, and you've got to knock it down to 46 plus 15 guys on the practice roster. I just find it hard to believe that under 2 games that you can get that done efficiently.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and every team's in the same pickle about evaluating, and I guess I'll go the other way. I think there's too much time spent on evaluation and not enough getting your regular unit together. I'm not making excuses for the Calgary Stampeders who have to play better, but that was really the first time that many of their starters had played together at the same time, at least in a sustained period, and I'm sure other teams had the same problem. So, maybe it's too much evaluation. You're trying to get all these guys done, and you have to tilt the scale a little bit more towards prepping for game 1, your first week opponent. But it is an issue, I agree.
Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, ditto. I don't like exhibition anything, and exhibition football is difficult to watch at the best of times. But I think there's something to be said when you only have guys playing a quarter or, 1 or 2 drives. It's hard to get into sync. And now I know they put a lot of emphasis on evaluation during practice, and I get that. But with the limited number of padded practices, what are you evaluating, really? I mean, you're evaluating guys one-on-one or in drills, and there's merit to that. But everybody will tell you football is about plays, about guys playing, and there's precious little of that in today's game because of the lack of padded practices and only 2 exhibition games. So the first month of the season, to me, has always been an extension of training camp.
Especially with the quarterbacks wearing the red jerseys, like "Do not touch me." I mean, it's got to be a real hard thing, and because and again, I'll use the Bo Levi thing. It's easy to drop back and set up, and knowing you're not going to get hit, or you might have to step up into the pocket and let the ball fly without getting drilled. So I find it very interesting to see that you got to be able to evaluate some guys. And I know in Hamilton's example, they spent a lot of time examining the third quarterback, like even more than Matthew Schultz, who's the second quarterback there, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to, because you know what you got with Bo, you know what you got with Schultz, and I think that comes back to the veteran thing that I was alluding to earlier. I look in Toronto where they've got Chad Kelly, who's in his second year, and they got 3 guys behind him that are in their first year of Canadian professional football. So a lot of evaluation goes into the number 3 guy, or in Toronto's point of view, from the number 2 and number 3. So It's a quandary. There's no doubt, and you hope, like heck, in Toronto's case, that Chad Kelly plays 18 games, because based on what I saw at their training camp and exhibition games, there's not much proven talent behind him in terms of CFL experience anyway.
I'll just jump in here for a second.
Right.
I'm just going to jump in here and jump on Dan's point. I really like what you said about you use the first few weeks of the season to sort of build more of that chemistry, and that's really what it's going to be. And you see it all across the CFL's offenses usually start slow in the first few weeks, especially with a new quarterback on a new team. And that's sort of, it's a long season, and a lot of teams do make the playoffs in the CFL. So, if it takes a few weeks to get your offense rolling, then so be it. You're not necessarily out of the playoffs, right? And so that's, the games matter. They want the starters to play. So I don't think extending the preseason would help. I just think you just allow more leeway in the first few weeks to whether you drop a bad game because your offense played poorly, then so be it. You're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that's what it is just the offense takes a few more weeks just to get, their chemistry and their rhythm and get in sync with each other.
Well, then maybe CFL fans know I'm not going to go drop my $75 on a game. If that's the case, I'm basically seeing preseason ball for the first 4 weeks, guys. That's tough.
Yeah, but then your defense steals you a game, right? I mean, or your special teams step up. It is what it is. It's not pleasant to watch. I loathe exhibition football. I loathe it with every fiber of my being. And if I have to sit outside at Guelph University one more game, I'm not a happy camper. So, but no, I think maybe it is what it is. Like you said, it's going to take a month for you to get in sync. We don't have padded practices anymore, or as many anyway. So, and football is all about repetition. It's all about doing the same thing over and over and over again until your muscle memory returns, and that's going to take 4 or 5 weeks.
You talked about being at Guelph University to see the defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, Dan. Yep. It's funny, as we all do, we read these preseason prognostications, and they're generally opinions and opinion based. But I have not seen a team in the league where I've seen so many people either going one way or the other. Some people is saying that this team is going to be a last place team, and then some saying that they're going to compete with the Tiger Cats for the top spot in the East. What do you think? What are we supposed to expect out of the Argonauts? Because they are tremendously changed, and especially at quarterback.
I like their defense. I like their defense a lot. And if Jamal Peters comes back after being let go by the Atlanta Falcons, I think that unit it really helps itself. I like some of the moves they've made on the defensive side of the ball this offseason. I've watched Chad Kelly in practice and at rookie camp, and he's, I always like to go in with an open mind. I went in with a very preconceived notion of what to expect, and he's surprised me. I think if I could say that the man has matured before my eyes, I think I would. He's not what I expected. He's, when he came up here, you heard all about the off-field stuff and the bravado and what have you, and he's confident. Don't get me wrong, but I actually saw a guy who's really trying to become a leader and put his arm around guys and talk to them, and offensive linemen the same. And I think then his quarter of play that I watched at Guelph against Ottawa, he was sharp. He looked like he was in command of the offense. And I'm cautiously optimistic about what I see from him. He's more. We saw in the Grey Cup what his mobility can do. And I think they have to be careful not to rely too heavily on that, because you don't want him to get hurt. If he stays healthy for 18 games, I think they're in the mix as the best team in the East. And I like what they've done defensively. BJ Bird showed me something on special teams during training camp and the exhibition game. I think they can stay in the hunt in the East. I think they will be a contender in the East, so long as Chad stays healthy.
Mark, it's crazy. What we saw in the Grey Cup was pretty outstanding, and I can only speak for myself. I had the Blue Bombers as double-digit favorites in that Grey Cup game, and
A lot of people did, yeah.
And that was a shocking victory. And 15-3, if I remember correctly, against 11-7, and we can get into all that stuff about the 11-7 being against the East and a bad Ticats and Ottawa team. But regardless, can he continue to shock and amaze? Are people out west? There are people saying, hey, yeah, that team can do some damage with that guy at quarterback and a 36-year-old running back, yeah. I believe.
Yeah. Well, it's more the defense. I agree with Dan. I think their defense is really good. I think they do a good job of drafting, retaining Canadian talent. You're right, Chad Kelly. I mean, maybe he is changing right before our eyes, and give him a chance. He's earned it. Let's see what he does. I'm with you. He better stay healthy. But I think they're a pretty good team. I don't see any reason why they can't be toe-to-toe with the Ticats when it comes to the end of the season. They earned the Grey Cup win. They harassed Zach Collaros in that Grey Cup game like he'd never been harassed all year long. So, no, I've got a lot of faith in the Toronto Argonauts, and we'll watch them unfold. Yeah, I know about the 36-year-old running back, but that is just a bowling ball. He's amazing. I like watching him play. So, no, I think there's enough there to make them a very competitive team, and I guess it's the oldest cliche in the book, but until somebody rips the cup out of their hands, they're still the team to beat.
Taylor?
Yeah, he's not going to – I don't think Kelly is going to have to throw for 403 touchdowns to win the game, right? Their defense is strong enough to keep them in most games. I mean, we saw it in Saskatchewan. You don't need your quarterback to throw a milestone game and put up 50 points for your team to win, right, if you have a good defense. So I really like the storyline of having a new, unproven quarterback. I bet you he has a long leash. I don't know if he starts out slowly, if he'll be around, if he doesn't win his first 3 or 4 games. But I really like seeing new quarterbacks, seeing what they can do, and obviously, give him a chance. I think is what the Argos are going to do, and with the play of their defense, I think he will have a long leash, and I'm excited to see what he brings.
Guys, who is under pressure? Right? I mean, we talk about the Argonauts being under pressure. On an individual basis as head coaches, I mean, the change in the CFL is pretty often, we'll say, at the head coaching position. Taylor, who is under pressure and better win some games out of the gate real quick?
Well, Chris Jones better win a home game in Edmonton, so he has to stop answering all those questions. He got pretty ticked off in the post-game media conference on Sunday night about the Elks' home losing streak. But I think his job is pretty secure, although if they go 0 and whatever, then he might be in the hot seat. But I think Craig Dickinson, and I'll kind of lump in Jeremy O'Day, the general manager here in Saskatchewan, with him. Obviously a very disappointing year last year, on the last year of their contract this year. So anytime you're sort of in your contract year, coming off a disappointing year, I think the leash is short. And if they don't get out to a good start, obviously a week 1 win is a good start, but they got to keep stacking these wins. They have Winnipeg this week, and they start with 6 straight West Division games. So you got 1 win, but there's not any easy games coming up here for the Riders. So if Craig Dickinson doesn't keep rolling with this team and maybe stay above the 500 mark by Labor Day, I think his job is safe. But if they start dropping games, he very well might be let go, and maybe the tandem will be let go midway through the season if they're way out of the playoffs by September or whatever. And then, if they don't make the playoffs, or maybe if they squeak in, then there's going to be some serious conversations about if they bring both these guys back next year. So, obviously if they put a good season together, I think they'll be awarded with a couple more years maybe in Saskatchewan, but they very well could go in a different direction if they come out to a bad start.
Well, Taylor, you're obviously in that market. I mean, was there a big surprise that they even weren't brought back? Dickinson in particular?
I think no, but yes. Obviously, fans here were disappointed, but they also understood that a couple of years prior that this team got almost got to the Grey Cup, 1 crossbar away. So I think Dickinson and O'Day, I'll kind of lump them in together. I think they're sort of a package deal. I think they'll stay together or they'll leave together. I sort of believe that, and they're 2 very nice guys off the field, obviously, but that doesn't really matter when it's really measured in wins and losses, if you're going to stay or go. But I'll say that many were very happy to see them around because they're such nice guys and they've done enough work and they have strong enough resumes to be given those longer leashes and stay an extra year and really, here you go, prove yourself in your final year sort of thing.
Mark, is the other Dickinson under any pressure? This is not the same Calgary Stampeder teams I think that we've gotten to know over the years or the last couple of decades.
I would say no. He added the title of general manager in the offseason, so I think they get along pretty well in those GM coach conferences. So I don't think he is. No, I mean, I know the team has not won a playoff game since the 18 Grey Cup, but, I don't sense any particular pressure, although I guess there always is pressure anytime you step onto the sidelines. But no, I don't think there's any real flamethrower following him around or anything.
Anyone else around the league that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, you touched on it both right there. Obviously, the Saskatchewan picture is front and center with the the brass and the brain trust not extended beyond this year. They're coming off a terribly disappointing season last year. If they are stumbling around at mid-season, it would be easy to let both go. So I would say those are the two guys that are really under the gun. I think you touched on it too about Chris Jones, that he's got to start to win. Listen, full marks to the Edmonton Elks for filling that building, or a lot of people anyway. It was a tremendous-looking crowd. They worked tirelessly to fill that. But you know what? They need support on the field. And you lose another, you lose another, you lose another. And suddenly you're starting to lose a lot of money. And, if they really continue to struggle at home, and it's hard to believe it's gone on this long, the board of directors are going to have to say, what exactly is going on here? The people have tuned this team out. If it goes on. I should point out that there was, again, a great crowd yesterday, a lot of work, but, they lost $3 million last year. They lost money the last few years, and eventually money talks. I know some of that was the COVID season, but even a financial bedrock like the Edmonton Elks can't keep taking body blow after body blow. So we'll watch that carefully, and I think Chris Jones, is going to have to get the team in a better position in the standings, especially at home.
Has it been as long as they've been the Elks, they have not won a game at home?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy. That is really insane. Dan, anyone that you see or you feel Ottawa?
No.
Maybe even
Hamilton? No. I don't think Bob Dice's job is in jeopardy already. I would agree with Taylor and Mark. My eyes would be on Saskatchewan and Edmonton, and I don't think anything imminent in either situation. I think Craig bought himself a bit of time with this win, but as has been pointed out, he can't go 1-5 against the West. That can't happen. And I'm with Taylor and Mark about Edmonton. They got to start getting some home wins, because I don't care how well the organization does. People want to see a winner, and they've had to deal with setback after setback, defeat after defeat since 2019. So. Winning talks, winning heals a lot of wounds, and they better start doing it quick, or else if they struggle, I mean, they're on the road this week, and then they come back and play Toronto at home, and so it's not an easy track, and I don't think Chris is going to get fired tomorrow. But if come Labor Day they're struggling again, I'd start watching when their bye weeks are.
Fellas, let's call it a show. It's been a real good one to kick off the season again. We always thank you for your contributions. You guys are solid returnees for like the last 3 years, so we really appreciate your time. Taylor, certainly, where can our fans reach you?
Check out the Regina Leader-Post online, or follow me on Twitter, Taylor_Shire.
Dan, I know you're covering both the Argonauts and the Tiger Cats. It should be a good one this week, and some of our fan base, they want to reach out to you. Where do we find you?
On Twitter, _DanRalphCP.
Mark, big game coming up this week, and when those Stamps fans want to go against you or with you, where are they going to find you?
Yeah, in Ottawa, battle of the winless so far. The best place is at Twitter, at @MarkOnFootball. So I post a lot of stuff there, and also on Facebook, Mark Steven, Sports Broadcaster.
Thanks, guys. Hey, we've been listening to, or maybe even watching the CFL this week. I'm Bubba O'Neil again. Please catch us every week on the Ticats Audio Network or wherever you listen to your podcast. And as we always say, please like and subscribe. It really helps us develop the show. And you tell us what you want to hear sometimes, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on the Ticats Audio Network.
The CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil. Subscribe, like, and get the deepest takes on Canada's game every Monday.